Hi there, I'm Michelle Burrows, Director of A+ Schools of North Carolina, and I'd like to welcome you to the Arts Are for Life 2017-2018 online virtual professional development series. This series is a collaboration between the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, the North Carolina Arts Council, and A+ Schools of North Carolina. We're excited to journey along with you as you grow professionally and build your knowledge around comprehensive arts education. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Tucker, Music and Theater Arts Education Consultant at the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. Please know that during this video, you will need to pause the video in certain places to allow you to reflect individually or with your group. You will also want to take notes during these times, as this will help you answer the evaluation questions at the end of the module. After you complete the module and the evaluation, you will then want to copy and paste the link that is provided when you submit the evaluation in order to access and print your certificate of participation.
Hi, I'm Sharon Hill, Director of Arts and Education for the North Carolina Arts Council. I want to thank you for joining us to learn more about the North Carolina Vision for Comprehensive Arts and Education. Please enjoy the series.
Hello and welcome to Fascinating Rhythms, the second of 4 arts integration modules in this series. Once again, I'm Michelle Burrows, Director of A+ Schools of North Carolina, and I'm happy to be your host for this module. In each arts integration module, we will consider arts integration in general and then zoom in on one specific art form for some examples, thinking, and resources. In this module, we'll be looking at music integration. As you view this module, you may need to adjust your computer's volume for the various video segments of the module. You can also always pause the video and rewind if you've missed something, want to hear something again, or need a sound adjustment. Let's get started. Before we jump into the fascinating rhythms of music integration in this module, we'll refresh our memories with some of the benefits and whys of arts integration and of music integration in particular. And we'll consider the difference between arts enhancement and arts integration. Then we'll take some time to view music integration in action and unpack it to look for standards and 21st century skills. We'll share some tips for managing music integration in your classroom and then wrap the module with resources for your own practice. But first, let's hear a few voices talking about the benefits of arts integration.
Kindergartners love music, love to run, love to play games, love to reenact lots of the stories that they read. And through arts integration, we're able to use all of those means in order to allow children to move faster through the curriculum with a better understanding and with more examples of how to use that information that they're learning in everyday life.
We've seen many kids blossom when they get into this environment.
I've just excelled in my learning since day one.
It gives them a sense of pride and a sense of place and a sense of value.
It's really helped me a lot, like become more bold as a person, I guess.
In the last arts integration module, Get on Your Feet, we shared some definitions and benefits of arts integration. Just to refresh our memory, here's the Kennedy Center definition of arts integration. It's an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through an art form. Students engage in a creative process which connects an art form and another subject area and meets evolving objectives in both. And here are a few more thoughts on the whys of arts integration. An article from Scholastic that discusses strategies for arts integration shares that one of the reasons why arts integration holds so much potential for students and for the classroom is the power that the arts have to engage students in experiential learning. That's the process for making meaning from a learning experience. The article goes on to say that the arts open doors to creativity and nourish critical thinking and innovation in students. By the way, all of the links to articles and resources that we share during this module will be available on the virtual professional development page housed by the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. We'll share that information at the end of the module. A recent study conducted by Harvard's Project Zero showed that arts integration, or the teaching through the lens of the arts, can lead to overall academic improvement. For some students, the arts create that entry into content areas that are otherwise challenging. Because the arts support the development of students' self-esteem and self-expression and address students' multiple intelligences, they've been shown to have a positive impact on students' learning, mastery, and potential. Now let's focus in on the benefits of music for a moment. In this next video clip, we're going to listen to what a student thinks about the benefit of learning in and with music and the arts.
I had to work very hard in my off time to get the beats right, to be able to listen to every part, every aspect, to be able to perform well. And it's hard, but once you get it, it's amazing.
Be careful, don't rush that last piece.
There's really no wrong way to do art. You do it your way and you make it yours. You can ask my parents, I drum all the time now. That can be a blessing or not. But also in things like math, I can count better. I use counting. I can think about so much more. I can focus on so many different things, and I'm well-rounded, which is going to be great in the future.
The Humanist magazine recently shared results from a 10-year study that tracked 25,000 middle school and high school students. The students who participated in music received higher scores in standardized tests than those who had little to no musical involvement. The survey results were of significant difference. Students who participate in music averaged 63 points higher in the verbal section and 44 points higher in the math section of the SAT. Considering that students can get a maximum of 800 points per section, an additional 40 to 60 points could be the difference between an acceptance or rejection letter from a university. Students who have access to music can be more well-rounded and can reap the benefits in other academic subjects. You heard Harrison mention this as he commented on how he feels stronger in math due to his learning in music. There's quite a bit of research linking the benefits of music to math proficiency. There's a particular reason why math scores are also affected when students study music. Music requires a very specific type of brain activity called spatial temporal reasoning. This form of reasoning is used to solve complex problems and help students come up with solutions or identify patterns. Like other parts of the brain, this reasoning concept works like a muscle. The more it's used, the stronger it becomes. Even improvising, rapping, and creating piggyback songs increases the ability to solve problems and work through challenges. What's a piggyback song? A piggyback song involves taking a popular song that everyone knows, like Old MacDonald, and changing the words to fit your content. Any use of music seems to be beneficial in the classroom. One more piece of research found on the pbs.org website confirms that learning music facilitates learning in other subjects and enhances the skills that students use in other areas. So using a music-rich experience, such as singing, listening, using instruments, and moving, all provide cross-curricular benefits. Think for a moment now about your own beliefs and experiences around using the arts in your classroom, and especially around your comfort and use of music in your own classroom. You might want to jot some notes down as you think. What kinds of things are you already doing that incorporate music? If you're watching with a buddy, take a moment to discuss. Restart the video when you're ready to continue. Now let's take a few minutes and consider the difference between arts enhancement and arts integration. I think Susan Riley of Education Closet does a good job of discussing the difference. As you listen, think about the learning experiences in your own classroom and consider when you are using arts integration and when you're using arts enhancement.
Hi there, I'm Susan Riley from Education Closet, and today we're going to be talking about the difference between arts integration and arts enhancement. So lots of times when I go visit teachers, the first thing I ask them is, what is integration to you? What does arts integration look like? What does it sound like? And sometimes I hear things like, oh, I'm already doing that. And that's wonderful, I'm so glad. But then I ask them to elaborate a little bit. And when they elaborate, they say things like, I used shadow boxes to help teach the planets. So my kids made models of the planets in these shadow boxes. Or I found this great Pinterest activity and I just tried it in my classroom with crayons, melted crayons, and it was awesome. Or I just taught 50 Nifty United States to my kids to learn all 50 state names. And while all of those are wonderful ideas, and I'm so glad that we're incorporating creativity into the classroom, those are all examples of arts enhancement. So the main difference, I think, between integration and enhancement is the intention with which you use the standards and assessments. So here's what I mean by that. Whenever you're thinking about whether or not you're doing an arts integration or an arts enhancement lesson, ask yourself this question: what standards am I teaching and what standards am I assessing? If your sole focus is only on the content standards or it's only on the art standards, then you're missing the boat in terms of integration. Let me make it clear, there's nothing wrong with enhancement. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. I love enhancement because it really does motivate our kids. It makes the classroom exciting and it encourages creativity. And that's a wonderful thing. And I think we should do more of that. But to just stop there limits the potential that our kids have at using the arts. That's where arts integration really steps in and steps up. When you're using arts integration, it requires your students to use a totally different cognitive level. So when you're using arts integration, you're doing things like application and synthesis and evaluation, and now at that highest level on Bloom's, creation. And when you're just using arts enhancement, you're not hitting those areas. The other piece about arts integration is that you're actually looking at the arts standards and teaching in and through those standards to hit your other content area. So that means that you're being intentional about it. You are intentionally selecting arts standards that make sense in that content lesson that you're trying to accomplish. You're intentionally teaching those standards side by side along with your content standards. And you're assessing them equitably, not necessarily equally, but definitely equitably. So you're taking a look at, did your students grow in both the arts area and your content area? This leads to a richer, more vigorous lesson experience. In fact, when you're in an arts integration lesson, you shouldn't be able to tell whether or not you're in a content classroom or an arts classroom because your students are really focused on both equally.
Before we go on, let's take a minute and have you consider your thoughts around arts integration and arts enhancement. Pause the video here, jot a few notes, or discuss this with a viewing colleague. When you're ready to restart the video, just press play to continue on. When planning and developing lessons, ask yourself which standards you're teaching and assessing in order to strengthen your arts integration. If you're teaching and assessing both arts and non-arts standards intentionally and equitably, then you're using arts integration. But remember that for most educators, there's no way that every lesson can be an arts integrated lesson. Think about arts-based learning on a continuum, from creative arts connections or arts enhancement to true arts integrations. And remember that all places on that continuum are still providing students with engaging and creative ways of learning, accessing new knowledge, making connections, and showing what they know. Take a look at this lesson from Susan's website, Education Closet. Here are the English Language Arts and Music standards she's working with. For English Language Arts, the standard is about describing characters, setting, and events using key details. The music standard includes demonstrating expressive qualities that reflect intent. Let's look at this lesson to see whether there is intentional and equitable use of both of these standards. So here's the lesson. It starts with reading a book and predicting what will happen, documenting answers, and describing the character traits of each season from the book. Next, there's some discussion of composers and how they might use music to show change in the seasons. Students listen to a piece of each movement from Vivaldi's Four Seasons and then describes the traits of the music for each season. Next, students experiments with making sounds for each movement of the Four Seasons using instruments or body percussion. And then finally, small groups create a soundscape that demonstrates the seasons using those instruments or body percussion. Let's go back to the standards and see what you think. Without seeing the student products or the lesson in action, do you think both the English Language Arts and the music standards were met intentionally and equitably? Pause the video again here and think about or discuss your thoughts on whether both standards were used equitably. Again, jot down some thoughts or talk with others who are viewing the module. Press play when you're ready to continue on. Now let's view a live example of music integration with Claire and her first graders.
You perform today with your book and your music? To get a star, you have to do all these elements in your performance. You have to have music with instruments. Echo.
Music with instruments.
Music with your body. Echo.
Music with your body.
Everyone had a part.
Everyone had a part.
You read the story.
You read the story.
And you had control. Ding!
And you had control. Ding!
To get a star, you have to use all of these elements. Music with instruments, music with your body. Everyone had a turn. You read the story and you had control. Excellent. Teach.
Okay.
Here are the English Language Arts standards that Claire is using during this lesson. Claire is focusing on reading with accuracy and fluency to support comprehension. Did you hear any of this standard being referenced as she set up her rubric with her students? And here are the music standards Claire planned for in her lesson. From the North Carolina Music Essential Standards, Claire is working with selecting a variety of traditional and non-traditional sound sources to accompany reading, stories, or dramatizations. Did you hear her mention any of these in her rubric? She took the time to make sure that students knew what was expected in their process and product. Now let's look at one of the group's products. Keep those rubric checkpoints in mind as you watch, and we'll come back and assess the standards afterwards.
Cat, I love my white shoes. Pete the cat was walking down the street in his brand new white shoes. He loved his white shoes so much he sang this song. I love my white shoes. I love my white shoes. I love my white shoes. Oh no, Pete stepped in a large pile of strawberries. What color did they turn his shoes now? Red. Did Pete cry? Goodness no. He kept walking along and singing his song. Everything is cool. I love my red shoes. I love my red shoes. I love my red shoes. Oh no. Pete stepped in a large pile of blueberries. What color did they turn his shoes now? Blue. Did Pete cry? Goodness no. He kept walking along and singing his song. Awesome. I love my blue shoes. I love my blue shoes. I love my blue shoes. Oh no! Pete stepped in a large puddle of mud. What color did they turn his shoes now? Brown did Pete cry, goodness no. He kept walking along and singing his song. Groovy! I love my brown shoes. I love my brown shoes. I love my brown shoes. Oh no, Pete stepped in a bucket of water. All the brown and all the blue and all the red were washed away. What color were his shoes again? White, but now they were wet. Did Pete cry? Goodness no. He kept walking along and singing his song. Rock and roll. I love my wet shoes. I love my wet shoes. I love my wet shoes. Where's my The moral of Pete's story is no matter what you step in, keep walking along and singing your song. Because it's all good.
Excellent job. Did they have music with instruments?
Yes.
Did they use music with their body?
Yes.
Did everyone have a part?
Yes.
Did they read the story?
Yes.
What about control? Then they get a star. Excellent job.
And if you send
Claire wanted us to know that in this sample student product, the bean bags are the sounds of the mud. The dry erase boards are the squeaky shoes. You probably figured that out. Claire's students decided on and created all of the sounds that they selected to go along with their book. They also picked their story from some leveled options. Before we talk about the standards, let's take a minute and consider classroom management. Think about the strategies Claire was using in her lesson with her students. What do you think her comfort level is with noise and activity? Where is yours? How could you adapt a lesson like this to better match your own style and comfort level? What processes or structures might you need to have in place in order for a lesson like this to be successful? Pause the video here, jot some notes, consider or talk with colleagues about classroom management when using music integration. When you're ready, press play to continue. So let's think about classroom management when using music integration for a moment. An article from the Smart Music website lists 6 strategies for managing your music classroom. We're going to adapt those strategies for using music in your classroom, and really all of these strategies are just good practice for any classroom. The first one is teach, model, and reteach routines. In Claire's video, you could tell that she's worked with her students on routines that work in her classroom. The students clearly knew, for example, what it meant to echo her instructions. Next one is use nonverbal signals. Claire was clearly using nonverbal signals that had been practiced, but she was also using verbal cues simultaneously. In many classrooms, nonverbal cues, such as a raised hand for quiet, work very well. Each teacher needs to find and establish their own nonverbal cues. We aren't going to spend a lot of time talking about these other 4 management tips here, but a word about using instruments in your classroom, even body percussion. You'll need to model proper use of each instrument, probably more than once, and then provide students with the opportunity to explore and experiment with each instrument. Skipping this important management step can turn your classroom into chaos, so better to put the process in place before turning over the instrument tub. Okay, so let's take a look at those standards again. What do you think? Do you think Claire's students were experiencing true two-way arts integration? Was it more like arts enhancement? Or maybe somewhere in between? Remember that all levels of arts learning are valuable for students, but it's important to know when you're doing what. So the ELA standards, did the experience strongly support those standards of developing reading fluency? And how about the music standards? Were Claire's students selecting a variety of traditional and non-traditional sound sources to accompany the reading? If you said yes to both the ELA and the music standards, I think you're right. Now, this lesson wouldn't be taught in isolation, and it won't be the only time Claire is working on reading fluency, but she's indeed modeling two-way integration. Both the arts and the non-art standards are equitably in use. Students are engaging with both as they practice, and both standards are being assessed using the rubric. This is a good example of two-way integration not having to be a huge, complex thing. It can be a simple classroom activity that takes place in an hour one morning. Now, I do know that Claire has a strong music teacher at her school who might have provided some support for the lesson, and that's an awesome thing. But even without that awesome arts educator on your staff, you can create opportunities for music integration too. Now let's take a look at another example of music integration. This one is with Brandon, the music teacher at Creedmoor Elementary. Brandon says that his third grade students were at the tail end of some good fraction work. They've been building common vocabulary and talking about equivalent fractions and how to add up to a whole. Students are going to do this with beat blocks and with fraction strips. Then they will try to write their own music adding up to 4/4, which happens to be the time signature. In the next few clips, you'll hear Brandon describe the lesson, show you how to use those beat blocks, and then see some students in action.
Third graders are working on equivalent fractions right now, so the teachers and I have been working to try and connect the fraction names of the music notes, like whole note, half note, quarter note, and eighth notes, to the sort of math that they're doing in class as well. Students will be using these beat blocks, which they're already familiar with, to find equivalent fractions. This is a whole note, so they can quickly see that 2 half notes equal 1 whole note, and so on and so forth. Students then get to choose to make their own rhythms. Perform them and figure out the math problem that goes along with them.
All right, class, what is that note?
A whole note.
That's a whole note. What's that?
Half note.
Half note, and this is a?
Quarter note.
Excellent, and this is a?
Eighth note.
Good. So, when we write whole note, we write 1, and when we write half, we write 1/2. And when we are a quarter note, we write 1/4. And then when we are an eighth note, we write 1/8. 1/8. Awesome. Good. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to find how many half notes equal 1 whole note. Use the blocks in your bid. Hold it up when you are ready. Put it together and hold it up. All right, class, how many quarter notes equal 1 whole note? 4! So that means 1 equals 2 halves equals 4 quarters. All right, go ahead and take those off and see how many eighth notes equal 1 whole note. Good. Awesome. Go ahead and hold it up. Beautiful. Okay, now we're not counting how many blocks, we're counting how many notes. So how many little note heads are there? 8. There are 8. So how many eighth notes equal 1 whole?
4 eighths. 4.
Is it 4 eighths?
No, 4 eighths.
It's 8 eighths.
All right, can you guys say it?
Ta ta ta.
Great job.
All right, 1. What I would like you to do is on your paper,
You are going to draw your notes. You don't have to draw the box, okay? Just draw your notes, and then I want you to draw your math problem that goes along with it. Please remember that eighth notes on our blocks are 2 eighths. Ready, go.
1/4, 1/4.
Good job.
And yes. Oh, I just saw plus sign. Plus, and then equal? Yeah. So equals what? Equals whole? Yeah, whole, I think. I'll write the math for a while. One? Yeah. So we need to add so I can make another. One whole. Here we go. 1/4 plus 2 eighths plus 1/2 equals 1 whole.
Just a quick pause here before we go on to provide you with the link for the beat blocks that Brandon's students were using. The Building Musical Minds website also has ideas and lesson suggestions. Both links will also be included with the resources listed for this module. We're going to pause now so that you can think about which standards you saw in action during the example with Brandon's third graders. Pause the video and open a second browser window. Type in the NC state standards or the standards for your own state if you aren't from North Carolina, and see if you can find a third grade math and a third grade music standard that were being used in this example. Press play when you have found a standard in each discipline and you're ready to continue. So here are the standards that Brandon said he was working with in this lesson. Again, the equity with which each discipline's standards are used in the lesson makes this an arts integration lesson. Now remember that Brandon is a music teacher. Most classroom teachers without a music background would likely find it somewhat difficult to integrate musical notes and musical symbols into their math lessons, but this is a great integration to work on collaboratively. You heard Brandon say that he'd been working with the third grade teachers to connect his music standards with their own math standards. So in this case, Brandon can have a little more focus on the music standards in his room, and the classroom teacher can have a little more focus on the math standards. But with that said, you heard Brandon using the math vocabulary of fractions, numerators, and denominators in the lesson in his room as well. Brandon's lesson also gave us a glimpse of that spatial temporal reasoning that we were talking about earlier in this module. Consider the varying levels of identifying patterns, solving problems, and identifying solutions that took place in his lesson. Let's also take a quick look at the revised Bloom's taxonomy. We've looked at this in the last module and in one of the arts education modules. What levels of Bloom's were the students working on throughout Brandon's lesson? We definitely saw students activating their prior knowledge and remembering at the beginning of the lesson. We saw them comparing and demonstrating understanding with the beat blocks as they applied their knowledge. We saw them distinguishing between the various types of notes as they analyzed rhythm patterns, and we saw students creating as they formulated their mathematical equations. Strong integrated lessons will move in and out of the levels of Bloom's as students apply, analyze, and create. Where do you think most of your lessons fall on the Bloom's taxonomy? Take another moment to reflect on this example of music integration and how it connects to your own practice. How could you adapt an experience like this for your classroom? Where might you start? What's your level of comfort using musical notation or vocabulary? Pause to discuss, reflect, or jot notes, and hit play again when you're ready to continue. We're We're going to take a look at one more integrated lesson, this time with Meg from Arts Space Charter School. This is a 5th grade take on integrating music and fractions with a slight social studies spin. These clips have a little more teacher talk and reflection than student action, but I think Meg makes some important points as she reflects on this lesson and provides an additional perspective and view on arts integrated instruction. We'll come back together following the clips.
Hi, I'm Meg Berner. I'm the music teacher at Arts Space Charter School. This lesson reflects integration of math and social studies content. The math integration gets really deep into fractions and finding fractions that make up a whole. In this case, music integration makes up a whole beat. They're determining by making connections of why it's called what it's called in music and how it relates to its fraction. Also, they're going to be drawing 21st century skills of working in groups and learning how to present and share together as a group. And the social studies connection is more into the cultural narratives and how the song that we're going to be singing reflects the lifestyle and the traditions of the people of China. 2, here you go. Sing in the mirror, sweep out the old lanterns, firecrackers, red and white. Very good. So what was I singing underneath? You're keeping the beat on the rhythm sticks, which did help us. So think dragon dance, dragon dance. Here it comes. One more time. Try playing dragon dance with dragon dance. So we're finding that we need to have the mallets much closer and also maybe choke up on them a little bit. Okay. There you go. Try that again. Anything that's gonna, whichever ones you would like to use is fine, but it's T-T-ta, T-T-ta, ta-ta-ta. Think of rhythm syllables instead of words. Try it one last time. Much closer. Very good. We're going to put it into our body. We might even take the words away at some point, and that'll be the B section. This part with the orff instruments and the cymbals, the sweeping and the clapping, that's part A. Okay, so we're going to put it all together next week. Any questions, comments? I found that it's really important to have these integration units be mostly student-led, drawing from what they already know, what they've learned in their classrooms, and asking them those probing questions. Then they sort of come up with the design of how the lesson's going to go. Originally, I thought this lesson was going to be a lot more social studies heavy, but it turned out to be a lot more math and fraction heavy, and I was really delighted with how that turned out, and it just established those connections that I'm also trying to make in my music curriculum when it comes to being able to count rhythm.
So let's take a quick look at the standards that Meg was working with. She's listed the 5th grade math standards around fractions, English language arts standards connected to presentation of knowledge, social studies standards focused on cultural narratives, and music standards focused on rhythm patterns, notation, and composition. You heard Meg say as she reflected on the lesson that it morphed a bit during the process, and that she felt that she kind of lost a bit of the social studies content. This post-lesson reflection is incredibly important. Teachers don't have a lot of time for reflection throughout their day, but if you miss this important part of thinking about how the lesson went and whether the students mastered the content you were anticipating, you're missing an opportunity for revising, adapting, reteaching, and potentially strengthening the lesson for next time. Another important thing to point out from this lesson is what you can see on Meg's board, her crossover in integrated vocabulary. She has listed the musical notation that she's teaching her students, as well as social studies content vocabulary around diversity and culture. Sharing the standards and vocabulary from both integrated content areas with your students, no matter what grade you work with, is an important validation of both content standards. Let's also take a quick look at the elements of music. For Meg, these elements that she was using in her classroom, especially rhythm, beat, and tempo, are also wrapped into her music standards. For non-music teachers, finding ways to understand music elements and vocabulary is a first step to developing comfort with integrating music in your classroom. If your current comfort zone around music stops at playing music as background or singing songs about your content, your next step is to seek understanding of some music vocabulary. You don't have to start big. Start with one vocabulary word, explore it, experience it, and then try integrating it with some of your non-music standards. This video from the Teaching Channel website, Artistic Expression, Music, Art, and Poetry, provides an easy starting point for connecting musical concepts with English language arts standards. If music integration is brand new to you, or is the most difficult art form for you to integrate, this video might provide a potential starting point for you. One more thing to think about as you grow your use of arts integration in your classroom. Remember those 21st century skills? Consider what skills you saw in use during Claire, Brandon, and Meg's lessons. Students were demonstrating creativity and innovation, collaboration, communication, problem solving, critical thinking, adaptability, and accountability. Consider a lesson or two that you taught this week. Are you assuring that students are using these 21st century skills in every lesson? As we've talked about in past modules, arts integrated learning definitely supports the use of all of these critical skills. A couple more thoughts before we move on. First, arts integrated instruction doesn't mean that you never provide direct instruction anymore. You noticed all three teachers providing some level of direct instruction during their integrated lessons. You'll also find that integrated instruction provides great opportunities for you to assess individual understanding and mastery and provide needed one-on-one support, as Meg was doing with the student working to master the rhythm on the metallophone. And also, just a word about your role in arts integration. The goal of arts integration is not to turn non-arts trained teachers into arts teachers. The goal is to teach your own standards in the best, most engaging, and hopefully the most creative way that you can to help students build the strongest connections, understanding, and mastery that they can. If you're giving up your standards to provide your students with an arts experience, then you've missed the point of arts integration. Let's pause the video one more time here and take a moment to process all that you've seen. What are some ideas for integrating music with your own learners? What music and other content area standards could you work with? How will you manage the potential noise and chaos? Who could you collaborate with or ask for help? What's a possible next step for getting going on this work? Talk, discuss, jot notes. When you're ready, hit play. Even though the music integration lessons we explored today in this module were based in the elementary grades, music integration is not only for elementary students. There are great opportunities for music integration with middle and high school students. Arts Edge, a website of the Kennedy Center, offers many integrated lessons for students in all grades. For example, here's a great lesson that connects Fibonacci sequences with music. On the Arts Edge website, you can look up lessons by grade level, by arts discipline, or by non-arts disciplines. These lessons are designed to all have deep arts integrations built into them. Remember though, as with any lesson plan database, that you'll need to adapt the lessons to your own state standards, to your teaching style and comfort, and to the students in your classroom. There are many great books out there for music integration, as well as books that cover arts integration across all of the arts disciplines. These resources and all of the links in the module will be included in the module resources on the NC DPI Arts Education Wiki space where you found this video. Look there for all of these useful resources. And one final resource for you is this document called Music Matters from the Arts Education Partnership. This is about how music education helps students learn, achieve, and succeed. Just one more tool for your advocacy toolkit. Now let's wrap up our exploration of music integration with some of our youngest integrators.
A, B, C, later, D, E, F, G, Lydia, H, I, have to go down, J, call me, A, oh, I had a good time, P, Q, R, miss me, S, T, you are my best friend, V, W, X, Y, Z, because I love music. That's all.
You've made it to the end of Fascinating Rhythms, the Arts Integration with Music module. Resources and links relevant to this module can be found on the NC DPI Arts Education Wiki space at goo.gl/SB capital Y capital G U capital H, or by going to the NC DPI Arts Education Wiki space at http://ances.ncdpi.wikispaces.net. We thank you for participating in the Arts Are for Life 2017-2018 Virtual Professional Development Series. In just a moment, you'll receive information on how to obtain your certificate of participation.
As you participate in this series, we want to ensure that you have opportunities to share your learning with others who are taking the professional development, as well as those in our state or in other places who may enjoy hearing about your experiences. Make sure to tag us on Facebook and Twitter and use the hashtag #CArtsEd17. For further resources on this professional development series, use the link provided on your screen.
Please help spread the word and tell your friends that the Arts Are for Life 2017-2018 Virtual Professional Development Series is geared towards teachers, administrators, teaching artists, or anyone who wants to better understand the arts education essential standards, arts integration strategies, or how to effectively work with teaching artists in schools to support student understanding.
Remember that with this series, there are up to 10 contact hours available for CEU credit with prior approval of your LEA or charter. Participants will receive a certificate for 1 hour of participation for each episode by completing an evaluation which includes answering reflective questions from the episode. Remember that after you complete the module and the evaluation, you'll copy and paste the link that's provided when you submit your evaluation to access and print your certificate of participation. The evaluation for this module can be found in the text just below the module title. We thank you again for participating. This series is created in partnership with the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, A+ Schools of North Carolina, and the North Carolina Arts Council. This concludes the module.